Good morning, everyone. Thank you to those that are joining us in person and for those that are joining us online. This is the April 4th, 2025 regular monthly business meeting for our Island Transit, and we're calling it to order. The first item of business is roll call. So I'll just go through that. Jill Johnson. She's there. I can see her. Janet Sinclair. She just came online. Okay. We'll give her a second to join. Craig Sear,
Here.
James P. Merrow,
Present.
and Melanie Bacon. I believe will not be joining us today. And so, Janet, I see your name. You're here. Please acknowledge. There's Janet.
Had a
Good
minute to
morning,
get my audio done.
Great.
And Jenny Wright.
And Jenny Bright, your host. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Any changes?
I don't approve the agenda.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. The consent agenda, that would be the minutes, the vouchers, and acknowledgement of a correction to the March 7th regular business meeting. Are there any comments or changes?
So I move we approve the consent agenda, the last two items, the minutes from March 7th. Let's move that onto the regular agenda as business item number 8. And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the minutes to business item number 8. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? See a thumbs up from Jill. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, now is the time for public input and comments. This time is set aside for members of the public to speak to the board about subjects of concern or interest or items not already set aside for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be ended or modified if the comments become disruptive or are not germane to business at hand. Input requiring lengthier comment is best submitted in writing. Do we have anyone from the public? I know in the room we have Martin. So if you want to address us, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, I'm Martin Vanderpass. I'm a commissioner for the Port of Kuta, and I'm a Island Transit writer. And as my role with the Port of Kuta, I'm on the IRTPO, so I'm starting to get involved with transit issues. And I wanted to talk today about advocating for pedestrian crossings to access Island Transit across the highway. There's been a couple fatalities actually, just outside right here at Ryan's house, and that has caught my attention. And I think I've heard it said in the IRTPO meeting that people shouldn't be crossing the highway where there's not a crosswalk. And that, I'm an engineer, and that kind of logically struck me as not possible, not compatible with how transit works, because you can ride, I rode the bus here, and to ride the bus back to my house, I'm gonna have to cross the highway unless I walk along the shoulder up to the nearest crosswalk, perhaps a mile or two. So I'd like to see Island Transit thinking about that and trying to make improvements to signage or lights or painted crosswalks, or I'm not a traffic engineer, but figuring out solutions to improve the safety on the stops on the highway that have a lot of passengers. Some stops, it's pretty rare, and maybe there's already safety improvements there, but especially the one at Ryan's house, I'm sure there's probably 3 or 4 more that can be identified that could be improved in some way or another. And specifically about the Ryan's house incidents and the Haven, I have a proposal for a modification to the bus route. When there's passengers on the southbound #1 bus, that are looking to go to the Haven, rather than stop at Ryan's house and then get a different bus or transportation option to get to the Haven, the bus could turn left onto Morris Road from, using the protected turn lane, turn into the Haven, drop people off, go around their loop driveway and turn back left, back onto the highway into the protected merging lane and merge into the highway. I think that's a safe solution and I think it would eliminate a lot of logistical problems. I don't know. I'm not really involved with Ryan's house or the Haven or the Spin Cafe. And I don't know the history. I know there's been a lot of challenges getting that all set up, and this is not the first iteration of how things work, getting people there, but I think it's a good time to just take a step back and look at what we have now and look at what's possible. And I think that solution would be possible and improve safety. So that's all I can say.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Do we have anybody online with their hand up? Oh, ma'am. Okay, seeing none, we will close the public input and comments time and move to business item number 1, which is resolution number 6-25, and I'll turn it over to Melinda.
Yes, thank you, Jen. We have our new HR manager on board, Terrence Ellison. And he is being added to a signer, of our warrants.
I move we pass resolution number 625, authorizing certain persons to sign warrants on behalf of Island Transit effective today.
I would second that. I do second. Would do.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 625. Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of approving resolution number 625, which is to add Terrence, our new HR manager, as a signer, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Seeing none, the motion passes. All right, we'll move to business item number 2, resolution 7-25, and again, I will turn that over to Melinda.
Okay, thank you. Our current 457 plan administered by Mission Square currently does not include a number of programs outlined in Exhibit A in your packet available to Island Transit employees, including a catch-up provision now allowed by the IRS for those ages 60 to 63. The additions that are being proposed in your packet do not create a monetary or administrative burden to the agency. In addition, opening a 401(a) plan along with this 457 allows Island Transit to deposit its current 6.2% match separately from the employee's contribution in the 457. Allowing our employees to maximize their contributions as allowed by the IRS. And that'll take any questions.
Questions, comments, feedback, emotional outbursts?
So the,
Jill?
Can you help me know the history of why we haven't done this? I feel like there was a decision at one point, but maybe I'm wrong. So I just wanted to know what the history was.
Commissioner Johnson, it's my understanding that with Mission Square, each year the IRS will open up opportunities such as the catch-up provision. And also Mission Square will propose new programs under the 457. So it was a matter of me taking a look at what was available and what we could include that just wasn't included. So I got together with the VP at Mission Square to examine what our current program included and what we could add to it. So I can't speak to the past as to why it wasn't there, but that's what I discovered.
Thank you. And thank you for looking.
You bet.
Commissioner St. Clair, did you have a comment?
No, I can't remember this coming before the board since I've been on this board. and I appreciate Commissioner Johnson's question. I didn't know if there was history.
So I move we pass resolution number 7-25, authorizing certain administrative changes to the Allen Transit Mission Square retirement deferred compensation plan, including establishing a 401(a) money purchase plan.
And I strongly second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I've totally lost my mind, you guys.
All those in favor?
All those in favor of passing the motion, authorizing the executive director to add the 401(a) money purchase plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. This is really exciting for the employees. Okay, we will move to business item number 3, resolution, where it's a resolution day. Resolution 8-25. And this is you also, Melinda?
It is, so business item number 3 simply allows us to open another electronic funds transfer account, which is required in order to make those electronic deposits from the 401(a) or from payroll to the 401(a), similar to what we passed last month for the actual program.
I move we pass resolution number 8-25, authorizing the Allen County Treasurer to process all payroll related expenses for the Allen Transit Mission Square retirement 401(a) money purchase plan.
Second motion.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. Sorry. Oh, I should wait to be called on.
Sorry, Janet, I didn't see it.
Well, I didn't raise my hand. I just jumped in. I just want to make sure that first I have a question for Matt about the 2 words fringe benefit and what that means in terms of taxable benefits and whether those are the appropriate words for this resolution. It is in our packet on page 16 of 25. I'm just wondering what the tax liabilities of this program is going to be for employees.
Commissioner St. Clair, this is all done pre-tax, so there would not be any burden on the employees. Is that what you were asking?
That's what I'm clarifying, wanting to clarify is
done in a-
does
It's done in a
do,
pre-tax
for
situation.
example, is there any, in these benefits that are here, are there cash benefits that have taxable implications? That's my first question. And have we recognized that?
Commissioner St. Clair, in my conversations with Mission Square, may I clarify, are you asking about the additional programs in Exhibit A that we're adding?
I'm asking about resolution 925. I thought that's what we were on.
No.
We're on 8-25.
We're on 8-25.
Oh, well then just ignore me and I'll come in when I'm ready. Sorry.
I'm having the same kind of morning you're having, so it's all good.
Well, and I read the packet just this morning, so it's bad on me.
Join the meeting.
Yeah, 8-25 just speaks to establishing the EFT.
That's fine. I'm good.
Okay,
I'll go get a second cup of coffee.
okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 8-25, authorizing Island County Treasurer to transfer funds via EFT from designated payroll account. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we will move to business item number 4. Which is resolution 9-25, adopting an employee recognition program, and I will hand this over to Melinda as well.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, resolution number 9-25 essentially removes what was referred to as the on-the-spot award for employees. As required by the management letter we received from the state auditor's office in January from the 2023 audit. So it was a monetary award that did not have a measurement to it, and the auditor's office has declared that we cannot do that. So this resolution simply removes that from the other awards that are listed in the program.
So this is not new. This is that we are eliminating something from our prior plan that was identified by the SAO as not appropriate. Right?
Yes,
Okay, I can't see nods in the little square.
sorry. Yes, that's correct.
And
I think this is actually addressing the concern you were raising about tax implications, because the way it's written now, it's not a monetary benefit, so to speak, where before there was that issue of income, and we get into that territory of bonus and that sort of thing that the auditor is concerned with. So this I think cleans that up a bit.
that was my concern. And then I had highlighted when I read it, the now therefore be it resolved paragraph, the program shall of course be subject, you didn't write of course, but I included it in my brain, to budget authority and shall expend funds for the purpose. So it retains that this can't happen outside of budget, must be planned and intentional. So with those questions, I'm in support, and I'll do it. If we need a motion, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 925.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 9-25, adopting employee recognition program as revised. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I say
Motion
aye.
passes.
I forgot to say aye when I meant to, was supposed to. I'm doing really well today.
Motion passes. We'll move on to business item number 5, and I believe who's presenting that?
That is going to be Jennifer KPFF. It should be.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move to business item number 5, authorization to enter into a firm fixed price contract, and Jeff from KPFF will be presenting that to us.
You got it. Hey there, everybody. Just making sure, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So no, just walking through the HVAC items here. So I think there was a few questions last time. I guess not, am I jumping the gun? Are we doing Seed Farm first or the HVAC?
No, we've got the wrong slide up, Jeff.
Oh, okay, no worries. And I guess I didn't have any slides for the HVAC. I was just talking through that one. So but no, just I think there was a few questions in prior discussions about cost deltas that have occurred for the HVAC work. Some questions on kind of life expectancy for the system itself, and then also with regards to accomplishing that work now versus waiting for the fuel building updates. And so just kind of walking through a few points related to the first one, the cost deltas. So there was an initial cost or an assessment done, and then preliminary probable cost, engineered probable cost completed in June of 2023, give or take. And so that was June of 2023. And so we're now all, pushing towards June of 2025. So almost 2 years have passed there. So I think with regards to construction cost deltas, it should be expected that there's some escalation there, some additional construction cost impacts. But then also product availability and labor costs actually went up in that time period as well. So that's one thing that we're kind of attributing some of the cost deltas to. Also too, within the Blythe Mechanical cost bid, I guess at that point, they have just a little bit different approach to some of the recommendations. that Trace West, our mechanical, had in their assessment from June of 2023. So from that June 2023 assessment to the Blythe bid, then there's just a little bit different approach, not to say it's the wrong approach, but different approach to tackle some of those items. And then two other things sort of associated with those cost deltas. So there was test and balance costs that Blythe Mechanical had included there. I think part of the Trace West assessment assumed that there would be some wait and see on that to see how it kind of shook out and then do an additional adjustment there. It seems like Blythe has included that up front. And then the last component there is there's when you do some duct work, extending duct work, you might have to punch some holes in walls, things like that. So cutting and patching costs too, we'll call them kind of architectural costs, were not necessarily included in that Trace West assessment. So that's also just a little bit of part of the cost delta there as well. And so I guess before we leave those items, is there any questions on kind of the cost delta piece between sort of the estimate and the assessment versus what was in the actual bid?
Yes, in the information we have, we're just seeing a number there, 726,300.
Yeah.
There isn't any deltas shown. So what was the original bid and how much is it now? I mean, I know how much it is now. What was the original bid?
Well, I guess there wasn't an original bid. There was basically an estimate of probable cost that was included with the assessment. And I think that was somewhere around like 565K. So there's a delta there for sure. And so it's just trying to explain really kind of what likely attributed to, and it seems reasonable to kind of account for those deltas. Were there any other questions on the cost delta piece?
Follow-up question on looking at this. What does general conditions, what is that?
So good question. When a contractor comes on site, they have just general costs that they accrue. You could almost attribute it to like overhead, things like that. But just a certain cost of doing business on a project to mobilize their crew, get them on site, have some office space if needed, rent equipment, things like that. And so contractors will often roll those costs up into what they call general conditions for doing the work. So no, that's a good question, but it's sort of, I don't want to, it's not a markup per se, but it's sort of kind of attributing to their overhead costs associated with the work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the cost deltas there?
I just have a general curiosity question.
Yeah.
Those overhead costs aren't built into the cost of everything else. So everything else is being billed as direct cost, like their actual cost, and then they put those costs of doing in a separate line item. So there's no other place where they're like accounting for labor costs where they would have overhead included in labor costs. There's no other place where they're building in those business costs. They just pull that out separately, and that's what their operating costs are.
Great question, Jill. That is in fact the case. And oftentimes if you review a construction bid, you'll see all the direct costs, any sub costs, and then sort of the bottom line. Then they'll add on their overhead profit and things of that nature. So they're split out separate. So said differently, they're not double counting. They do split it out and just put it at the bottom. So. All right. Let me touch quickly on sort of there was a question on life expectancy. So in the Trace West assessment, initially, again, that was June 2023. So there was an approximate 10 years estimate to the remaining life for the HVAC systems. Given that approximately 2 years has passed, we could assume that that's bumped down to say 7 to 8 years of remaining life for those things. So just wanted to put a caveat on that. And then the last piece is there was a good question on why not hold out the fuel building work, because there's a proposal to put 2 new radiant heaters in the fuel building in the exterior fueling bays that are exposed to weather to help the operators or whomever may be fueling to stay warm in the winter, because there are actually no doors and that space isn't heated generally. There is an upgrade happening to the fuel building within what will be an enclosed office space. And so just to kind of caveat the difference between those, So again, the exterior units, the two radiant heaters are just an electric heater that uses a radiant coil that heats up, basically a wire, and then projects the heat down. The new heat that would go into the enclosed office / break area would be an actual heat pump unit that actually brings heated air into that space, but it also provides cooling as well. So there's really it's two pretty significantly different type of systems. So that's one kind of difference between those two, and why it may make sense to still keep the radiant heating for the fuel building in the Blythe estimate. The other is as part of, I hate to say it, but as part of kind of cost escalations, things like that, if you were to pull out the radiant heating from Blythe, two things may happen. One, they'll then have an ability to update their bid, which may then increase the total cost, because they could then update costs between when they initially signed that bid to now. So you may see a decrease for the radiant heat, but an increase in the overall maybe escalation for some of that bid for the other items for admin maintenance building. The other piece too is when you bring those radiant heaters back into, say, this later fuel building project, there are some recent tariffs that have been added here. So it could be that radiant heating cost actually goes up, either because of tariffs, availability of equipment, things of that nature. So said differently, you may remove it from the Blythe estimate at some value, but then when it's injected into the fuel building upgrade value, you would likely see that cost go up. How much, I'm not sure, but just a few considerations there for potentially keeping those radiant heaters in the Blythe mechanical estimate. So that's really all I had as far as kind of points to present. I don't know if there's any additional questions.
Sure, anybody, I have a question. I appreciate your comments with regard to the old life expectancy.
Yeah.
My limited experience, but it's been very real, is that complex systems and HVAC and other things have different life expectancies for different components and assemblies.
Yes,
And,
that's true.
And in public works, you could go down a decade or so, and then you find that 10% of the assembly needs to, or 10% of the system needs to be replaced, but you go back to the manufacturer and they quit making that model. And so it's a way of leveraging more business, because they have to replace much more. So if you would speak to this matter about life expectancy for the new system and replacements as needed. Any comments with regard to that?
No, and I think that's a great comment and a great question too, is through time, there is expected maintenance to systems. And so to your point, I think with the system that was installed in 2012, that's really what we've identified here has about 7 to 8 additional years of life expectancy. That's, I think, the system as an overall. To your point, there are components and pieces that will need to be maintained, upgraded, and possibly replaced. And so I think that is part of the risk of cost of doing business, I guess, and the risk in doing business is that at some point those parts, those pieces may become obsolete. And so that's just something I think the industry does through time. I don't think it's any one thing to say, hey, Island Transit, we gotcha. But I think that is a potential risk there. So I don't want to say that's not real. The thought is here overall that the general system shouldn't need to be replaced, for another 7 to 8 years. If there is an instance where a major component within that system isn't able to be replaced, it could be that you have to update that system sooner. So it's a real concern. I don't know how directly applicable it is here, because I'm not as familiar with those systems as, say, our mechanical would be. They'd probably have a much more slick answer for you. But yeah, that's generally, it's a valid point for sure. And I think it's just something that we can't really predict as kind of a design team.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I have a question. So what, Pete, what's the timeline for this once, assuming we agree?
They'll start working on a system in about 3 weeks,
And completed by winter?
by end of December, or the end of December.
Okay.
That's with everything.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Is there a warranty on this system for $752,000, or we just like put it in, and if it breaks, we fix it as the normal cost of doing business?
That's a good question, Pete. I hadn't gotten into the details of the terms and conditions there. Do you know, are they offering a warranty on their work?
There's a one-year warranty.
I have a question. There's a 1-year warranty on the work, but what about the components?
On certain component, not all.
So I move we authorize Island Transit to enter a fixed price contract not to exceed $726,300 with Blythe Mechanical to upgrade the HVAC system in admin, operations, maintenance, and fuel buildings at the Whitby main base.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments, Jill? Commissioner Johnson, did you have another comment?
I'm just gonna vote no, mostly because I don't think that warranty term is long enough for the complexity of the work. And I'd like to see us revisit that warranty term. I mean, I think 2 years for that amount of money and the complexity of what they're being asked to do is appropriate, but that's just my opinion.
Jeff, what is the typical industry standard for warranties and what is the potential for a longer duration for warranty, either at no cost or cost?
That's a good question. So I'm less familiar with sort of the HVA standard warranties or contractor warranties and how they're issued there. You know, I would say the 1 year sounds like it's a pretty standard thing for the work. My sense is if the agency were to ask for Blythe to maybe extend that warranty, it probably would be a cost item for them to extend that warranty out further. What I don't know, and maybe a question for Blythe, is you know, does that disrupt any ongoing warranties with the system that are inherent there now? And so I guess just me putting my 2 cents in there is that, you know, if they are a licensed contractor to perform work and maintenance on those types of systems for those manufacturers systems, then my guess is it wouldn't disrupt the warranty and you may still have some ongoing underlying warranty for those systems. Another way to look at this too is your initial system that was installed in 2012 may not actually be under warranty any longer. So that said, you may not have any inherent warranty, you know, to now. So in doing this, then you almost gain at least a year of warranty for the new work and making sure that it actually functions well. So said differently, you probably could approach Blythe about extending that warranty out further to 2 years. My guess is it would be a cost item. The other thing too, and I mentioned it earlier, is if you ask them to update their bid based on when that bid was signed, they may have the opportunity to escalate other costs that were inherent in that total bid, because anytime you open the bid back up for them to revise it, they can then catch up to some potential escalation over the last few months too. So it's a little bit of a risk reward there. So I hope that answers the question, but that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
I would support Commissioner Johnson's observation about, you know, especially a major capital project not having more coverage on warranty than just a year. There's that thing about a contractor is going to try to reduce their risk and increase their return, which is completely normal business. But whenever you're doing a major capital project and you get stuck with some lane situation that's completely preventable, then it's a very frustrating cost. So I would recommend revisiting this quote, but I would defer to Commissioner Johnson with regard to actually that idea.
I mean, we have a motion right now to approve, so we'd have to vote that up or down. But again, like everybody brings their own residual traumas to these conversations. And I think there was a situation with Island Transit and concrete years ago, and the concrete got put in and it didn't settle correctly. And some of the warranty period was over, and there was a major fight that went on with that contractor who did that work. And, you know, I'm struggling already with the price for what's being done, to be honest. And I feel a little bit like we need greater guarantees that the parts are going to work, that the complexity of the system's going to work. And sometimes you don't know that right away because people are still getting used to a new system and they're trying to make it work. And then there's actually a structural flaw in it that you don't figure out until, you know, months into knowing how the system works. I just feel like a year is a little bit quick because it will fall under the, oh, we're just tweaking it category, when in fact there could be component problems. And I would like a little more assurance for us. And
We
so
could accept,
sorry, Bat. Or Craig, I can't see when I talk.
well, it's me, go ahead, finish.
No, I'm done.
Well, one thing you could do is you could accept this as it is and then ask them to either see if they would add a second year warranty under the existing thing, or price it out and we could do a change order on the approved contract.
Would that help to secure current pricing without
Well,
opening?
that,
us up?
yeah, I mean, the fear, I think, in this environment is that
Right.
if you open up the number,
And then we get a 25% increase or something ridiculous like
Yeah.
that, which is what I would.
So you're saying we would just ask for what would be the cost of an additional warranty?
right, if it's outside of the original scope, we could do a change order and change the contract price rather than opening up the whole bidding sheet.
Commissioner St. Clair, did you have a comment? I see the hand now. I'm sorry, when it minimized that, I can't see
Yeah,
it.
it's okay. I mostly that in sort of quick and dirty commercial HVAC, there's a difference between manufacturer warranties of equipment and the installation warranties. And it's just an observation. It's generally the reseller are less. But I don't disagree with the concerns being raised. I'm balancing them in my mind with the risk of reopening a bid process and ending up further behind in cost. So that's my struggle. I don't disagree with the issues being raised. I just am struggling with the reality of where we are in today's economy.
I've not looked at the contract and I'm sure Matt, what the definitions of the warranties are. Jill brings up an excellent point in that there's a difference between structural flaw and, defect based on daily usage. So I think it would be important for us to kind of understand kind of really what the language of the warranty is covering. Because structural flaw may sit outside of the daily use warranty. So, I would not be opposed, but up to y'all to go with Matt's recommendation. My concern is that the cost, Jeff, what's reasonable to expect on an increase based on today's materials and today's work from a percentage perspective that we would increase if they do open up the quote and can then attach increases to everything across the board?
It's a good question. I don't know that I could really put a percentage on it. I'm not as familiar with it, but I do think Commissioner St. Clair raised a good point, is that the 1 year is a labor warranty. If they're installing parts and pieces from a manufacturer, it should be that manufacturer's warranty is somewhere between 5 to 7 or 5 to 10 years on that product. So if there's a structural failure of the product, then in theory, you'd be covered under the manufacturer's warranty, maybe not necessarily the labor warranty. So it's a good question. I wish I had a better answer as to, what that percentage might be if you open the bid back up. But I think that's one thing to consider too, is that, there are two different warranties probably being offered. I don't know exactly what the terms are for this one are, so.
What we have before us is a proposal and not a contract. And what we're voting on is the proposal. The proposal has the language of the 1 year warranty and, other issues. I would support Matt's suggestion. We accept this proposal, move forward with a not to exceed contract, and then ask if what the cost would be for extended warranties, or get clarification on the questions we've asked.
Can we restate the motion or what do we?
I had a
Oh, I'm sorry.
in light of the discussion here, I would support Matt's recommendation with regard to going back, because normally prices are
Oh, yeah.
flexible upward, but not downward.
Especially on
And
that.
especially on the capital projects. But it's not a fear, but my reticence about doing it is that it will just get blown, it'll just get waived off. So, well, we got the contract, let's just do it. And so I don't want to get into that position because we want to hold our contractors, subcontractors, and all the people responsible to uphold their duty under contract law to meet their obligation.
We can just put it on the agenda next month, so it doesn't get lost, so.
Carefully worded for us non-legal types.
So we have a,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. To.
that's right, did I make a motion?
Yeah, you made
Yeah,
it.
you did.
Yeah.
James
You seconded
seconded.
it.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to authorize Island Transit to enter into a firm fixed price contract not to exceed $726,300 with Blythe Mechanical to upgrade the HVAC system in the administration and operations maintenance and fuel buildings located at the Whidbey main base. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And then next steps for this, exhale, Pete. So the next steps will be to review the warranty information and then kind of decide what our go forward is from there, and then to have this as an agenda item next month.
Can I make a
Please.
comment? So I think in future projects, and it's something I know I've asked Will about when they've proposed POs to me and so forth, I always want to know what the warranty is on the components. So as we bring future projects, I'd like to have those answers readily available. For and myself.
Okay, moving to business item number 6, adjacent property update. That's Jeff as well.
Yeah, so I think we did have those 2 slides for this one.
Yes.
I can either share them if somebody has those. All right, perfect. So I wanted to just provide a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and then kind of some work done to date with regards to what is sometimes referred to as Tree Farm or the Seed Farm adjacent to the Island Transit Coupeville main base. And so the kind of the main history of this is that it was prior owned by I believe Weyerhaeuser, and they put it up for sale. And so I think so that was kind of the first impetus for some of the actions that took place following those 2 parcels. In essence, it's 2 separate parcels. You can kind of see it in the image here. The more square-ish one that sits immediately to the north of the base is one parcel, and the sort of rectangular piece that extends, next to that square one down all the way to SR20 is sort of the second piece of that, the second tax parcel of that configuration. And so it seemed like there was a good opportunity here for potential for 2 things. One is Island Transit, with any future needs from their long range plan, could potentially expand and utilize a portion of those properties for their expansion or some other use they determine aligns with the long range plan. But then also 2, to maintain a good chunk of that in a conservation easement. So it seemed like it could be a win-win, win for transit and a win for conservation. And so if we flip to the next slide, I was going to walk through just a few things that have kind of taken place between, the initial offering and then to today's kind of updates. So initially, prior to purchasing the property, the prior owner had done a phase 1, what they call environmental site assessment. We refer to it as an ESA. And so to not just blindly accept the owner's phase 1 ESA, basically Island Transit commissioned a second phase 1 ESA, sort of a desktop review to see if there was any underlying environmental conditions that could be an issue for Island Transit later. That all seemed to come back pretty clean. And so then we moved to kind of the next phase, which was to really prepare a boundary survey and ultimately legal descriptions for the 2 parcels. So a boundary survey was done, and then also legal descriptions prepared to support that purchase and sale. And then that purchase and sale actually went through. So since that purchase and sale agreement for the 2 tax parcels that make up sort of the seed farm, Island Transit has set up a DNR lease as really a revenue source, so that they can come and collect seeds from the seed farm, which as a happy coincidence too, it was those seeds from this seed farm were actually helped to do some mitigations for the forest fires out in the gorge. So they were actually able to be used locally here to help replant and encourage new forests from those forest fires. Then the next piece and kind of what's ongoing right now is there's currently preparation of appraisals for 3 parcels. So not to be confused there, but the 2 tax parcels we have in the tree farm, and while it's not on the screen here, but immediately to the east across Parker Road is the PRI site. So PRI also owns that property. So there's also an appraisal happening there. The reason for that is that once those appraised values are determined, so really the conservation easement is based on the value of the property. So the total of approximately 30 acres for the seed farm has some inherent value to it. There's an estimate on the PRI parcel because at some point, Island Transit may then pay for the conservation easement on a portion of the PRI to make up for the portion they may use of the seed farm parcels. So Island Transit would continue to maintain ownership of both tax parcels, but what would likely happen is, say, for the rectangular portion, that would stay in a conservation easement. A portion of the PRI property would be, a conservation easement would be purchased on that property, combined with the rectangular piece to basically equal back out the base value of what the conservation easement was for the seed farm. So said differently, Island Transit would basically pay to bring on some new area for conservation easement and extinguish, or said differently, take away the conservation easement on, say, that squarish portion immediately to the north. So that would give then Island Transit the opportunity to utilize some of that space for potential future base expansion or really any other needs that the long range plan determines they could use as good use of that property. The last piece there is, really with the long range plan being prepared, it's really unclear what that property may be used for, though. At the end of the day, it's known that there is a need for potentially bus training or other operational needs that could occupy some of that space. So that's just kind of an overview of sort of the history of why the purchase, and then also some of the work to date to kind of keep that moving forward to reestablish the conservation easement and then clear the pathway for Island Transit to potentially utilize some of that property. Any questions, I guess, on some of that history or update?
Can't see anybody online, so I don't know.
No.
Questions from anyone online?
You're basically just saying we have to have no net loss of conservation land if we choose to utilize it for another purpose. The land we own, the conservation rules say that you have to trade equal for equal so that countywide there's no net loss.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it. It's based on value. It's not necessarily based on area, but yeah, so that is the intent.
And that was a term and condition of the sale, so we're contractually obligated to do that.
Thank you for the update, Jeff.
Yeah, you bet.
Let's see, business item number 7, proposed service changes effective as of June 1, 2025, and the lovely Celine will be presenting to us.
Good morning. I get to do the exciting one. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I am Celine Muldowney Stratton, Marketing Communications Officer. Today I'm here presenting kind of on behalf of operations and outreach. Brad Windler, our interim operations manager, is currently supporting one of our operators as Mark Vance. We all know Mark Vance at the rodeo this week, so that's why I'm here. So we made a couple of changes. They were few but very important changes. I'll tell you first, I want to thank all of our community members, our riders, and our staff members for giving us feedback. It is absolutely important that we get that feedback. And I want to specifically call out our operators who are the boots on the ground. They're the ones who hear everything and they also experience it, and they were invaluable in this decision making. So really want to call that out and encourage more of that conversation with our department. It is absolutely valuable to us and in the planning. So we conducted outreach. We did that internally as stated, and we also did external We went and we did public service meetings. We held them in February. We went in Oak Harbor at the library, Freeland at the library, and then in Clinton at the hall down in Clinton near the ferry terminal. So the proposed changes that were made here were a collaboration between actually all department members, because here we work collaboratively. It was very exciting. We, most of the writers, you guys have this stuff in front of you, so I don't want to take up much of your time, and I'm definitely okay answering any questions you have. So we had few comments. Most of the comments were in regard to the Clinton commuter. And I'd like to say that is one of our largest updates, is to reinstate the Clinton commuter in the afternoons. And then coming with that, and you guys have it in here in your paperwork, is that we had to adjust two of the one northbound, one southbound route ones, so that we could accommodate the Clinton commuter. So that change was really made structurally, so we could make the Clinton commuter work for us. Doesn't hurt anybody. We talked to the public about that. We talked to the operators, and they were perfectly content with that decision matrix. Another change that we made, it was very important, was that we added a new, just one new Route 1 northbound trip, so a run in the evening, and this was to accommodate our Coupeville School District students after 2 o'clock. Otherwise, they would have to wait a long time, and there were concerns about their safety. And then concerns about come winter time, and it starts getting dark. Parents didn't want to have their kids out there, and we do have a number of kids that take the bus all the way down south from Coupeville, so it's pretty impressive. School district was happy with that. The other changes that we made, on the weekends, so those are all just the weekday changes. On the weekends, we adjusted, and I'm going to say we simplified routes 2 and 10 for Saturday and Sunday. So at some point in time, routes 2 and 10 on the weekends got separate weekend schedules. They had a Saturday schedule and a Sunday schedule. That got very confusing for us. That got very confusing for the riders. We're really trying to simplify this, make it equitable, and make it simple so our riders know what time they're going to catch the bus. They get to memorize it. So we just simplified it into one weekend schedule. That meant eliminating 2 runs on Saturday that were underutilized on the 2 and the 10. We got no negative feedback on that. People were thrilled to have a consistent schedule on weekends. So, and then of course, the only, or the last thing that we did was that we expanded on the existing on-demand zone 3 to include weekends. This has been coming for 2 years now. We've had a commentary, and that we didn't document that particular commentary, but we've had over the last 2 years people asking us about zone 3. When are we going to have weekends? Not only does that give people in that zone, which is a fairly large zone, weekend access to stores, shopping, the library, the school district, etc., with the Skagit Valley College, that school district, I guess. But it also expands paratransit. So this is a great opportunity for equity, which is really what our goal is here, right? I'm just trying to see if there's any other. The only other things that we did, and this really doesn't affect the scheduling per se, but it does affect operator scheduling, is that we made the operator break times more consistent. And this was discussed with the operators. And otherwise, there were just some minor schedule refinements. We did have one change in Camino, and it was really a technical change. There was a time frame that was actually mislabeled. It should have been 9:30 instead of 9:40 on the 411C during the weekdays. So that really didn't require any outreach on Camino. We did talk about that. It was a technical change on our part. We did not make a lot of changes as we're waiting for the long-range transit plan to come into effect. And we really want to provide stable, consistent bus service for our riders, our community members. And that is, if you have any questions.
So a question and a couple comments. First question is, I was curious to know where zone 3 is. It's Oak Harbor, is that right?
Camino. No, Zone 3 is Oak Harbor, so it's North Oak Harbor, so it covers from Altfield down Fatima, Taylor, and it comes the back way of, through, now my brain has
Excuse me.
completely stopped working, down to the school district, the library, and then back and loops around into Harbor Station. It's a very, important bus route to bring folks from the north end over there, which is just really agricultural district area. And there's a lot of, folks that live, up just kind of off the grid there into downtown Oak Harbor.
Okay, and then second, the last service change, I remember checking or asking a driver, like, how's it going with the new service change? And the comment was that it was like Christmas morning for them because attention had been paid to the brakes. And it gave people, not 120 seconds in Clinton before they had to turn around and head back north. And so this service change, I'm hearing that there's better things happening there, ensuring consistency. So this not only provides help to the public in the ways you've described, but this is an upgrade for the operators and the drivers. That's a good thing too. Better work environment for them.
Yes, thank you. That is true. Yes, sir.
I was impressed by the fact that you're fine tuning the schedule and dealing with the underutilized and reducing that as well as increasing the service to those that are more populated, I'll use that expression, and that the predictability piece is so important too, so that the riders know what to expect. And I would say that it will strengthen the position of this district as we expand to unserved groups that there is a latent, I'll call it a latent demand. In other words, they don't realize that they would use it if it was available, but if it was available. But there's that thing about incremental change, you institute something and then you back off of it if it doesn't work and so forth. So thank you very much. It sounds great.
So what I'm asking for today is a vote, from the board to approve our proposed changes. The proposed changes would go into effect on June 1st.
I move to approve the proposed service changes effective as of June 1st, 2025.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Commissioner Johnson, you had a comment?
I just had a question about process when we do, because I don't know, it's not a gotcha question. I literally don't know. When we do route changes, that doesn't require a public hearing.
Yeah, it's public meetings is what it requires that we go out to the public. So it's not a public hearing per se. It's to go out and get responses from the public in a public forum, so meetings. So we do have to make it available to the to all of our riders, community members, stakeholders, et cetera, through visual in-person meetings. Online, we have to make the information visible so that we can publish it online. And then we also do that through the newspaper as well. So we do meet the requirement of any kind of service changes. Otherwise, it doesn't require a hearing per se.
Any follow-up to that, Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Okay, very good. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed service changes effective as of June 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much, Celine.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody. I know this was a lot of work. All right, and then we have a business item number 8, which was
Right.
a carryover from the consent agenda. We pulled the minutes out.
The minutes off, right. So turn to page 2, the second page in our packet. Public input comments. The second word is here and it should be bright.
Okay.
So I move we make that change to the minutes of March 7th, 2025.
Craig, I'm
Second.
sorry, I missed what you said. Will you say that again, please? So I can note.
Yes, the second word, my last name Sears, should be Bright. Councilmember Bright asked if there's any public comment and there was none.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for catching it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to make a change to the minutes from March
Seven.
2025. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Fred. Okay, at this time, we have gone through all of our business items and we're gonna go through monthly reports. And we will hand it over to Madam Executive Director.
Thank you. So, this month, or last month, I typically, in my executive director report, I'm reporting from our last board meeting until this board meeting, and I'm very proud, and happy to introduce Terrence Ellison, who started with us on March 24th. Terrence has hit the ground running and has been busy building his relationships with both the staff, his peers and ATU leadership.
He joined us as
The HR manager, sorry about that, thank you. Terrence is going to be our point person for union communications, grievances, and the LMRC, and will join me during negotiations. This, of course, is just one area that he's addressing in his role, so would you all please join me in welcoming him aboard? Just a couple of updates. You all received my director's report, hopefully last night. Just a quick update on the operations manager. We selected Caress. I hope I'm saying that right. Caress Consulting from our state contract, who's going to provide executive search services. It is an abbreviated search, meaning that we are just doing a partial, but they are leading the charge not only on the services, including the brochure development, the national outreach, reviewing applications, assessing the candidates in categories A and B. They will also be doing interviews and then presenting the candidates in addition to suggested questions, which is all of that footwork. One of the things that they do is they do what's called a passive search. And that passive search actually reaches out to candidates currently employed in the transit industry, which is very helpful with us. So we're going to be meeting again next Wednesday and getting the contract finalized with them. And it'll probably be about a 5 to 8 week process as we go through that. So I'm very excited. This is the priority for me as this position represents. The agency has a phenomenal and important role in running our operations, as well as backing me up as the executive director in the community. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Let's see, NeoGov, our online recruitment tool, is in its final testing stage, and we are going to be adding a position to that, hopefully towards the end of next week. You will see that go live and we will begin the recruitment process. So that also is very exciting for the agency. We will no longer be taking paper applications, but we will be in the 21st century with online recruitment and process. So HR is really excited about this. Isn't that right, Stephanie?
Thrilled beyond belief.
It's really streamlined things, so that's great. A couple other things I'd like to mention that I'm excited to tell you about. Our camera system that we've been talking about for some time. The final contract came in under budget at $89,000. Construction is scheduled to start at the end of May and be completed somewhere in June of 2025. And that includes both Whitby and Camino. So we're really happy about that, as well as our Harbor Station, our park and rides. So that's an element of safety for everyone, and we're excited that it's under budget. The second project, the Camino Gate System, we are under final contract and under budget by $282,000. Now, part of that is because we chose not to do a double gate here at Whitby because we have one that is completely functional, but I do like to operate on the conservative side, so anytime we can still meet our goals and come in under budget is where I like to be. So,
Fantastic.
the timeline on that, Pete, I'm sorry, I didn't make notes on that. Isn't it close to the same timeline
I
as
think that one finishes in July.
that one finishes in July, so we're coming along. The Camino Gate system, for those of you that may not know, has been a manual gate that employees must move in the mornings, and we have had injuries on that. This electronic system will help to eliminate any of that and also provide an element of security. So. Lastly, I will just update you, state funding is, that picture is looking a little bit brighter. We are not at a final budget at this point. That is expected April 27th of 2025. Things seem to be a bit brighter as of April 2nd. I put the date in there because I get updates continuously on changes. There was a bipartisan vote that passed the transportation budget in the House. The main takeaway was, rather than eliminating rideshare at 100%, the proposal is to cut it by 50%. So there's still cuts across the board, but don't seem to be as dramatic as they were. The big difference that we're continuing to monitor is that the House is still underfunding regional mobility by 39 million and the green transit grants by 12 million. The proposed Senate budget places tolls and taxes on transit, raising $33 million over 6 years. That said, they're proposing to fully fund grant programs. So it will be very interesting to see how this all shapes up. I think for our larger urban partners, the taxes and tolls that will happen on bridges and HOV lanes will be a significant impact for them. For agencies like ours, it will be the licensing and stickers on each of our buses that we would be paying for. But those are the highlights. Are there any questions or other items that you wish to discuss? Sir?
So under projects, one of the big projects was, multiple projects, it was updating software. So I know that, the dispatch software, was recently upgraded. I'm wondering how that's going. And also, there was a mention last month about rolling out the Casio tracking app and
Yes.
to the public. So where do those projects stand?
Where this project stand right now is for the dispatch center. We're still working through systems and processes. Brad has been holding trainings with our dispatchers. I have been monitoring our on-time paratransit performance, which needs to be better to be in compliance. And part of that is a requirement of dispatchers to actually do some manual changes in, I want to say rebalancing. I'm not a pro in the dispatch area yet because I haven't been sitting in there. That's coming in June, but it requires some manual manipulations in order to make sure the rides are on time. So we're still working through the Passio process. We are waiting to do a full rollout of the app to when all of our funding has been decided, just as a
Why would we wait? Because of funding.
because we want to make sure that we're fully funded with everything before we roll things out to the public, giving them the impression that we are richer than we are.
I don't understand we have our buses. I'm talking about
What we're doing is a soft launch rollout right now. And they are preparing all of the materials for the rollout to the public. We just want to ensure the state budgets are passed as we do a full rollout to the public.
Okay.
It helps reduce confusion.
Okay. And, thank you you answered the question I was gonna have about taxes, how that would affect us, so that stickers on the buses. And then the ride share being cut by from 100% to 50%, is that like budget for vans or what kind of cut is that? How does that impact us?
You know, well, we get grant funding
Sure.
to be reimbursed for the services that we provide out there. So it's the operational side, isn't it? Is that correct?
I think I think rideshare, our capital grants generally for the vehicles,
Oh, okay, for the vehicles
for
themselves.
the vehicles themselves. Yeah.
Because I know it used to be that, we charge fares, it's the only part of the system we charge fares for here. And that covered around 85% of the operating costs. That's the number I remember.
You
So
know,
this
last
is
time I
about
did that,
purchasing vehicles.
sorry, last time I did analysis on the coverage was, it was 2/3 of the cost of the program. So, where that is today, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
Because, you know, the cost of vehicles has increased significantly since I looked at that last.
Right. And finally, the third item on the staffing update, operators, we hired 4 new operators, et cetera. The one area that this board got disconnected from reality previously was not understanding the trend in hiring. You know, we knew we needed more operators. We knew we needed a dozen more, but, when we received updates saying, hey, we hired 3 operators, or we hired 4 operators, which is a good thing. But is that after losing for 3 months losing? So, there was a chart that was provided 2 or 3 months ago that showed the trend.
Right.
And what we've got here is a piece of good news,
Mhm.
but we need to.
You've got a synopsis. I can go through and tell you who's left, who's added.
Oh,
Do you want that in the
What
future?
I would like to see is a chart. And there was a chart that was presented a couple months ago. Not in the executive report, but the Brad actually presented it.
Mhm.
And I think that chart would keep this board grounded
Okay,
regarding hiring drivers. And is the trend in the right direction? Are we getting close to our goal? The other thing I'd say is when we say, and I don't want to caution the board, but I just want to say, when we hear from staff that we're fully staffed with drivers, that's to our current service level. And we all know, I think we all know that we think service levels that there are opportunities for this agency. So if we hear that we're fully staffed, that doesn't mean we don't need more drivers. We need to keep recruiting drivers up to the budgeted amount. And I hope
Yes.
we're gonna.
I'll have Brad start presenting the chart
That
to
would be
you
great.
again. Essentially, these 4 operators brings us to our budgeted positions of 53 through June before we can start our next recruitment for the additions that were added to the budget.
Thanks.
And this number supports the June.
Correct, and June service change, that's right. And Craig, my apologies, because I do remember you asking for the chart last month. Meg and I had taken a look at it and it just all seemed very confusing, but we will make sure I include that.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Thank you. I appreciate the level of uncertainty in this report, Melinda, and what that does for you and your team. The state budget theoretically is going, we're done at April 27th. I was in transportation meetings primarily on ferries yesterday, and I'm hearing that they are likely to extend, but that's anybody's crystal ball. I would recommend at the close of the state budget, federal stuff will continue to evolve. But at the close of when we do have true sine die, that we revisit this issue of state funding and our budget at that time to see if we need to make any tweaks. What were the tax, and then I have a question, I have a question and comment. What were the taxes that you reference in your report? I didn't catch that.
The taxes?
Yeah, what were the types of taxes while implementing? That said, the Senate proposes to fully fund while implementing tolls. and
Yeah,
taxes.
those are tolling, taxes and licensing taxes on the vehicles.
Licensing fees. Okay, so not
Yeah.
really tolling and fees. Okay.
Which impacts more of the urbans because of roads, bridges, and HOV lanes.
Yeah, which I'm just going to point out is the height of privilege, because people with money just put their good to go pass on and go sweeping by the people who can't afford to pay $7 a day to go through. And we are asking to have that support funding for transit, which and many times that's for the transit dependent. So I'm not I'll just stop there. I don't need to go off on my feelings about that. I just
May
want
I
to
ask
make
you
sure we
a
secure that
clarifying-
everyone has the right to get to and from where they need to go. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. May I ask a clarifying question for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
You mentioned, and I had heard rumor of this, so with, the process supposed to be ending April 27th, did I hear you say that they may go into a special session?
I heard that yesterday, but
Okay.
there's nothing certain about that. It's just
Okay.
simply
That's-
there's significant differences between in the train, it's most particularly, well, in general, but also strongly in transportation. I don't know, I have no crystal ball, but that's what I heard when I was in the house yesterday.
I will say over time, since I've been in Olympia, the story seems to be getting a little better. But, yeah, no crystal ball.
Well, I hope we get everything done before the next reports come out in June, because I don't want to have to tweak it all over again. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's why I like to sit on.
With, with respect to, revenue generating authority by the state legislature, especially since we have a deficit at the state level. Our, was it minor taxing, junior taxing districts and localities are pretty much a creature of the state, at least that's how I understand it. They could impose upon us a requirement, I mean, if they elected to try to offset their deficit, but normally it would be not micromanaging how, but they would just cut funding. Or does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't hear any, sound that that's happening. That's a question from the state, that they're gonna cut us.
Well, there is still, it sounds like
Right,
rural mobility is gonna be whole.
okay,
However, regional mobility, which is another pot of money that we've used in the past, we haven't had any of that for a while, still will be taking significant cuts along with green transit grants,
Right.
which help to fund vehicles. And then the ride share or the ride share.
okay, well, thank you for answering that question.
Great, thank you. Next, we have
Me?
Matt Hendricks, the legal report.
So a recent meeting, I was tasked with a couple of questions. One, we currently are collecting 0.9 of 1% sales tax for our operating. And the question was, can we decrease that amount? And if the answer to that is yes, then what is the mechanism to do that? So the answer to the first question is yes, we can decrease our tax revenue if we so choose to be. And the second question is, what would the mechanism to do that be? And that embarked me on a little bit of a history of Island Transit, and I thank Meg for supplying me some documentation, because just historically, PTB, Island Transit is what they call a public benefit transportation area, PTBA. And we're enabled under the county statute under 3657A as our enabling legislation. Our taxing authority lives in a separate part of the statute in section 82. And when PTBAs were formed in 1976, the maximum amount was 0.6 of 1%. And I think we were created with that authority at the get-go. Over time, that section in 82 has increased a couple of times. Most recently, it was sometime before 2009, where and PTBAs of our size, Island Transit size, could go up to 0.9%. And in 2009, Island Transit was looking at that and saw the opportunity to do that. And really the devil's in the details of what exactly was presented to the voters. So any increase or any implementation or increase in sales tax needs to go to the voters. And so in 2009, the Island Transit Board passed a resolution basically authorizing or putting before the voters the authorization that would allow, and the key is would allow Island Transit to implement an additional 0.3. We were already at 0.6 to go to 0.9 of 1%. And that went in front of the electorate and was passed. That's one step of the process. The second step of the process is it sits in this room where the Island Transit Board then made the decision to actually levy that authorized tax. And so by a separate resolution, they authorized the levy of the tax up to that 0.9%. And then that was passed and then subsequently passed on to the tax to Washington State to collect that tax. And we've been collecting that tax since. So the way it was, the authorization would allow up to that point. So that's our authority. And so the board would have discretion to levy an amount lower to that with just a resolution, in my opinion.
And wouldn't have to go to the voters.
Would not have to go to the voters.
Just a
Yeah. Yeah, and the devil's in the detail because it had the proposition to the voters say to that or directs Island Transit to collect that amount prescriptively, then it would have to go back to the voters to reduce that. But our word was what would allow. So we have discretion and the discretion lies within this board.
Thanks for doing that research.
Yes, definitely interesting. For newbies like this.
And it's I mean, that the 82 has changed. So for example, there was kind of some spot legislation that was done that applies only to community transit, but they actually have the authority to go to additional 0.1, so they can go to 1.1% of the sales tax.
Any questions for Matt?
There's a question in this chat. Oh, it's like we still lose the matching funding. I think we should reduce the tax.
It would reduce, what I provided in the presentation last time. It would eliminate our CCA money, which is Move Ahead Washington funds. And it would also remove our portion of the sales tax equalization, which is approximately 28% of our operating budget. The state would not allow us to have those grants if we were to reduce.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we will move on to our financial controllers monthly report. Paul, take it away.
Good morning. I'll be touching on the highlights of the financial report for February of 2025. Just wanted to state on the first slide that this report we've already reviewed in our finance committee on Monday. Cash sources, sales tax revenue was up about 170,000 or about 12% versus the actuals from last year. And there was no contract cash receipts in February. So the big two takeaways on that slide. Next slide, please. Sales tax actual versus budget. In February, these are monies collected in December. The sales tax was up about 130,000, 9% above budget. And you can see on the chart where the blue and the pink lines are diverging to our advantage. And we were about 9% above budget. And you see that on the green line. For the year, we're off to a quick start. We're about 0.43% ahead of what we had budgeted for the year. So that's good news. Not much grant revenue, actually no grant revenue in this month collected, and nothing really significant to talk about as well. Next slide. We look at interest rates, which affects our ICTIP investment. In February, our interest was about $148,000, and that was down about 5% or about $7,600 from the previous month. ICTIP though, however, went up about 14 basis points in that period, or 5%. You might say, well, what's going on there? Why would our rate go up but our receipts go down? We talked a little bit about this in the finance committee, and you know, the LGIP rates you can see are declining, and that ICTIP invests in LGIP as well as bonds. So that could be one reason why our receipts have gone down. Next slide, please. Cash uses, February payroll payments, a little over $1 million, was down about 470,000 or about 32% from last month. And you'll remember last month that we paid represented sign-on bonuses in January, so we didn't pay that in February. Cash payroll is up 206,000, about 26% from last year due to overall salary increases. Accrued payroll is down about 360 or about 31%. Once again, because January included those represented sign-on bonuses. Non-payroll payments, these would be our payables. Approximately 870,000 was down about 345,000 or 28% from last month, up about 10,000 or about a little over 1% from last year. What we're seeing in February is subscriptions, licenses, and fees were down about 230,000 from January, where we make a lot of those license and subscription payments. And although we incurred our insurance premium of almost 500,000 in February, we purchased a record at 634,000 in January. So the net of that is our payables are down. Next slide, please. Very minimal capital payments, about $100.
Totally okay with that.
Cash reserves, total, our cash decreased about $390,000. And this chart just shows that how that money is broken out. You can see the capital decrease, that small amount, so that went, it was logged to our other capital. Next slide shows it graphically. We have cash is around 69 million, for about almost $400,000 decrease. You can see that two ways. The total chart, slight decrease of 400,000, and then it reduced our general reserve, the green portion of that total by February. Slide, please. We're looking at from a budget actual perspective on the revenue side. One thing I should point out is that it's showing federal and state operating grants, and we didn't receive the money for that, but it did bill. And of course, this report is an accrual report, which shows the recognition of that revenue, but of course, it hasn't been received yet, as we noted earlier. We look at our target, 16.67%, and our sales tax is slightly above that, as we discussed, 0.43% ahead of that. And our interest is also doing well. During our budgeting process, we considered interest rates is going down, and that hasn't really materialized there. Or maybe it never will. It'll be good news for us. Next slide, please. Budget actual on the expense side. Again, same target. You can see a couple items where it's well above that. One would be insurance, where we prepay that. The reason why it's less than 100% is that we received a refund from a year, the previous year's recalculations by WISTIP. And our subscription and fees, of course, again, we do a lot of prepayments there. We're paying licensing and subscriptions in the first month of the year. Of course, capital, is far below what we anticipated, but, you know, that will change radically with completion of projects mid-year. And, wages are pretty much on target, so that's kind of what we. That's the end of my report. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions from online, Craig?
Yes, on page 5 of 13, where you showed the voucher list, KPFF. Is it usual to have a vendor, bill us for October, for work in October of last year?
Oftentimes bills that we receive, either we didn't receive the service or there could be other
I just thought it was.
areas that hold those up. And until those are settled, oftentimes, you know, we won't pay that until, you know, every T is crossed and I is dotted, because we're held accountable with the auditors to secure documentation. With consultants, oftentimes a holdup can happen where they get their invoicing out later, and possibly we have to wait until the responsible manager reviews that before we can release payment. So there are a number of points where we have to, hurdles we have to get over before we can pay.
And then secondly, with all of the chaos at the national level with the tariffs, you have a crystal ball about how that might affect on transit?
I wish I did, because I would have made different investment choices. But I think, you know, the national news, we kind of understand that a tariff is really an additional tax, slow down commerce, and probably change people's purchasing behavior. So, you know, the tax is going to increase the prices of things. So in terms of how it might affect us, sales tax is when prices go up, collect more tax on those prices. When people purchase less because those prices go up, then our sales tax can potentially go down. I think even a greater worry might be is if the economy starts to slow. People are put out of work, then they're not going to purchase things. So we could start spiraling it in a negative way, which could ultimately impact sales tax. So there are different angles to it. You know, I think we can be assured that a true tariff will increase the prices and people will probably slow down their purchasing. How that happens exactly, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Melinda had a comment.
Yeah, I was going to say in response to the KPFF, one of the things I've noticed in going through the packet that it was billing, because I noticed such a big number of payment for October, November, December. I want to assure the board that, as you know, we are going through an assessment right now of our financial processes and procedures and our procurement process. So as we shore those up, I think you will see it differently in the future. I would not be looking back that far. But we still have results to come in and how we're going to shore those processes up. The other thing, as far as our federal funding outlook, I think the other thing to think about beyond the sales tax, and you raised some really good points there, is the cost of, for example, right now we have 2 buses on order that our quote was good through April. Although there was Buy America in place on metals and all of those things and steel manufacturing, I don't know how that will affect future purchases of buses and the costs that will rise there. So I think capital expenditures, in addition to our so-called earmarks, basically about 13.4 million that we had budgeted for the South Whidbey Transit Center. Those funds are still not in a grant. So those things, although they go back to 2021 and they're, we do not have those funds obligated yet, so they're still in question.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I was wondering if next month we could get a report on how much we paid out in the first quarter on late fees. I'm trying to dispel a community rumor, so I'd like to see a report just on our timely payments and late fees, if we have a report like that.
We should be able to get that.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we release Paul? Oh, sorry,
On the side
I'm
here.
going back into my corner next month because I can't.
So I appreciate the comment that Commissioner Seer or Council Member Seer mentioned about tariffs, but the consumer confidence is already going down and consumer spending is roughly 70% or something of GDP. I mean, these are just extremely rough numbers. But with the uncertainty has created an increase in savings and people are holding back already on their spending. So my question is, I don't want to be over dramatic about it, but there is such a thing as a recession. And what do they say? A booming economy doesn't die of old age. In other words, there's some events that happen and the accumulation of things of this nature. What kind of provisions do we have in the event that we did have a national recession? Because they do have, don't be blind to that. So you speak to that?
I would say probably the most poignant backup plan we might have is we have a healthy reserve.
Okay.
So that's really important. I just saw a jobs report where they said there were more jobs this month than last month, but unemployment ticked up, 0.2%. So that's conflicting news. Of course, all those are now taking into consideration the new tariffs. So just taking effect now, we might not see the impact of that for at least a few months to a year. It's a lot of it's a wait and see, but there's nothing that says that it won't push us into a recession. And if we do, I'd say we're in a really strong position financially right now. And we should do everything that we can to make it a strong position.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, did you have a follow-up comment? I saw you take yourself off mute. Okay. Great. Thank you, Paul. All right, at this time, we are going to enter into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. RCW 42.30.110. We will take 5 minutes in executive session.
Did you hear it? You never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just waiting for some of the folks that were out in the waiting area to come back in. We're reconvening after executive session. Is there any other business from the room or online? And then any other board member comments? I just had one comment that I wanted to make to the drivers and staff. The 21st of March is International Down Syndrome Day, and many of the drivers honoring that day wore mismatched socks, which is kind of a thing for that community. So thank you to Celine for putting pictures on social media, and just it was just a lovely gesture and just thank you so much.
They were very proud to do that, and our dispatch office all did that.
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. So without any other comments, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.